What's up, guys? It's your boy Izzy. Now, I just wanted to touch on the Arsenal game where we hammered West Ham over the weekend 6-0. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to put out videos on Sunday or on Monday because I had some crucial assignments that needed to be done after the weekend. The deadline was on Monday, so I needed to get those done. But have no fear, guys. I am still here with my review of the game. So, Arsenal were going into this match against West Ham off of the back of a few very good victories, most notably the victory against Liverpool. One that gave them enough confidence to believe that this might be the season that we finally break our 20-year duck as we chase our first Premier League title in as many seasons. Going up against West Ham, a team that had beaten us twice prior to this game, 3-1 at the Carabao Cup and 2-0 in the Premier League, which was a bit of a surprise result that was characterized by some profligacy from Arsenal and as well some very good defending from West Ham that earned David Moyes his first victory against a top six side away from home. So there were a lot of little subplots that were coming into this game. You know, you had Declan Rice, who's going back to his former team, and how would he cope with the pressure of playing against a crowd that once cheered his name and in recent games had been jeering his name. It was a very tough game for Arsenal on paper, ostensibly because West Ham are actually a pretty good side. They are in the top 10, and for a long time they had been in 6th place, but now have been leapfrogged after a few pretty tepid performances. Their game against Manchester United was actually not a bad performance. However, they were not rewarded by the score sheet because 3-0 was a little flattering to Manchester United, but United did deserve to win that game. Now, the story going into this game was Declan Rice and how would he handle the pressure of going back against West Ham. And on the other side, how would Arsenal handle the pressure of delivering a week after they had delivered such a good performance against Liverpool? In the first 15 to 20 minutes, West Ham were actually okay. They didn't play too bad. They pressed the ball okay. And Arsenal seemed as though they were just trying to stabilize the game for as long as they could because they knew eventually their possession would count for something. And, you know, they did go close with a few chances before they eventually took the lead. Trossard had a very good shot when he volleyed the ball that was saved by Areola. Saka was also very threatening on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, Martinelli was doing a good job. Trossard was playing the number 8 role okay, and we saw Havertz also put himself into a lot of good positions, and he was keeping the defenders preoccupied. And Arsenal began the game brightly. They had a stamp of authority on the game, but West Ham were actually still threatening. But it almost seemed as though as the first half kept on progressing, West Ham were now being overpowered. Their selection, in my opinion, was already pointing at a very defensive setup. When they had Ben Johnson playing as a right-sided winger, I thought to myself that David Moyes is almost showing his hand a little bit. And even later on, Bukayo Saka talked about the fact that he and Arsenal smelt blood. And I don't know if it was something more feral in the Arsenal team and their ability to suss out the fact that West Ham were going to approach this game extremely defensively. It also seemed as though Mikel Arteta did his homework tremendously when it comes to his selection and also knowing how to approach West Ham, especially in a game of this importance. But the game actually came to life after William Saliba scored a header from a corner kick that was very well delivered by Declan Rice. His delivery in this game was superb. The first of which fell to Saliba, who headed the ball in. West Ham decided to defend most of the set pieces in a zonal manner, and zonal marking can work in certain situations if you're very well organized, but West Ham didn't seem to have read that Arsenal are one of the best teams on set plays. Matter of fact, they are the best team. I think they have scored about 11 or 12 goals from set pieces after this game. So they really should have done their job on this. And that opened up the floodgates. Arsenal were like a lion or a tiger in waiting. They absolutely blitzed West Ham within the next 15 minutes. They had Bukayo Saka go close a couple of times. He went close with a header, which he really should have scored. And then a little bit after that, he tried to loop a ball slightly over Areola, and that went wide. But after that, he was set free by Trossard, and after a very good run, he was brought down by Areola, who did not have any response to the challenge that he gave at that moment. And Bukayo Saka put to rest the demons of the penalty miss that he had at the London Stadium last season by slotting the ball coolly beyond Areola. And at that point, Arsenal were well on top. After that, West Ham just capitulated. They didn't have any answer for every marauding run that Arsenal had. Bukayo Saka was having fun on the right-hand side. that Martinelli was beating players for fun on the left-hand side, Declan Rice was stable, and Arsenal were not really in any defensive pressure at that moment. I can't really recall any West Ham attack during that whole period, any that even resulted in any possession in Arsenal's final third. And eventually, Arsenal added to that by another Gabriel Magalhaes header, another very good delivery from Declan Rice, who was superb. His first half was almost near flawless. He was going into tackles left, right, and center. And, alongside him, Trossard was doing the number 8 role very well. West Ham were looking very ragged, and halftime could not come any faster for them. But unfortunately, it didn't before Arsenal managed to add a 4th goal. Trossard this time with acres of space after he danced past Kurt Zouma, who looked a little bit leggy, and he probably was suffering from an injury because he was later substituted. But Trossard was able to sidestep him and curl the ball past Areola. And by that point, West Ham fans were filing out of the stadium in droves. It was a very poor performance by West Ham, but an equally very dominant performance by Arsenal. And the fact that Arsenal were mercilessly devouring West Ham was something to be applauded, because we have seen iterations of Manchester City and Liverpool whenever they have the ability to press a team and get the most out of the game. We've seen Liverpool win 7-0 at Crystal Palace. We've seen the likes of Manchester City have very dominant away victories against Watford in the past. It's very commendable to start seeing Arsenal do the same. And if they want to put themselves in the same conversation as Manchester City and as Liverpool, they need to have dominant games such as these. Doesn't matter whether it's at home or whether it's away from home. After the break, you expected West Ham to come out of the blocks a little bit and probably play for pride at that point. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The second half kind of took the same tone as the first half. And in the first 5 minutes, Arsenal were already threatening. It wasn't long before Bukayo Saka had the ability to add his 2nd and Arsenal's 5th of the night. He thumped the ball into the net. And after that, as if something written by the footballing gods, Declan Rice was able to thump in a curler from pretty much about 25 yards out with a beautiful shot that went flying past Areola. And his muted celebration was out of respect for West Ham and everything that they've done for him. And it was a very classy gesture from Declan Rice. But that underlined a fantastic performance from the midfielder. People talk about his price being a bargain for what he's able to bring into the team. People have made a lot of his injury record and the fact that he's almost nearly available for Arsenal each and every single game. And that is something that, especially for Arsenal defensive midfield, we have had troubled times with that position. And most of the people who have occupied that role have always been made of fiberglass. And you think of Partey, you think of Abu Dhabi, and you think about some of the other players who came and went in the club. I think Flamini also took that role at some certain points. Coquelin had that role for a while. And so you see Arsenal starting to build something from the midfield, a very strong core. And a lot has to be said about what Arsenal have began to do to their opponents, because for as bad as West Ham were in this game, you can also say the same about Liverpool. Something that Mikel Arteta has been able to do was nullify his opponents to the point where a lot of them tend to have very few shots on target. And this game was none the different. You look at the way Arsenal were able to nullify Liverpool for a vast majority of that game. And while some of their goals were fortuitous in that match, you can't undermine the fact that there's a trend beginning to show in Arsenal and how they are defensively. And since the turn of the year, I think they've only conceded a couple of goals in the Premier League. So this is showing much more of a defensive resolve that Arsenal have. And over at the front, they have rediscovered their scoring touch. Now, Bukayo Saka still had some profligacy in this game. He quite possibly should have had a hat trick with all of the chances that fell to his feet. But we cannot ask too much of this Arsenal squad. They are doing a lot right now, and the title race is alive and kicking. It's very exciting and exhilarating to be part of this conversation, especially since for the last 15 or so years, we've always gotten to the point where Arsenal is almost threatening to break that glass ceiling, and then something happens, and an injury is always something that Arsenal have been one miss away from getting the game and the job done. Beyond that point, after Declan Rice's goal, Arsenal's quality took a dip after the introduction of the likes of Mo Elneny and Ethan Nwaneri. But it is good to see Arsenal put the youngster out there, and the comments from the rest of the squad after his post on Instagram was pretty inspiring to see. He's a young man who has loads of talent. He has been sought after by a lot of our title rivals, so it's good to see that he is staking his future at the club and is planning on a long-term project. And Mikel Arteta is doing a lot right now, and it is a great time to be an Arsenal fan. Now, as far as West Ham, there is a lot of conversation around David Moyes, and I do feel as though, not being a West Ham fan, I don't want to criticize what it is that they possibly don't see in him, but there's a lot of criticism as far as his defensive setup. And then on the other side, there are some people who have never been convinced by him, despite the fact that he has saved them from relegation a few times. He's gotten them a European trophy, and beyond that, he has been able to compete, especially in the top 10 so far this season, because you look at the likes of your Crystal Palace, who are a team that would kill to be in the same position that David Moyes has gotten West Ham to be. And I think that West Ham fans should feel a little bit lucky to be in the position that they're in, because it could be a whole lot worse. But I do understand the sway in wanting a manager who plays the West Ham way, and only the fans of West Ham understand what exactly that would be. And I don't want to belittle what they want their team to look like. I do think that West Ham fans need to be a little bit more grounded and to understand that it is very tough to compete in this Premier League at this present moment. There are a lot of talented teams, and the fact that West Ham are still in and around the top 6 or the top 7 or 8 should be something that should not be sniffed at, because a lot of teams are wallowing down there and are punching below their weight. And David Moyes has, for the large majority of his time at West Ham, been able to stabilize that. So as much as this loss would sting for West Ham fans, I would just urge you guys to quite possibly try and have a little bit more of a grounded view in terms of where you are in the league and how bad it could quite possibly be if it was another person at the helm. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Arsenal were able to beat West Ham comfortably 6-0. A lot of people thought that this was definitely going to be a banana skin. I was very worried myself up until we got to about the third goal. And that was when I was like, okay, we might be able to do something in this one. But it's a good victory for Arsenal, one that definitely underlines their ability to win the league this season. Now, whether that is going to happen is another story, but it definitely gives us a lot more confidence when we watch our team and see us being able to decimate our rivals. But anyway, guys, it's been your boy Izzy. Thank you for watching. And up until the next time, peace.